Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Dogs Down South, Tuesday night, 50th episode of Dogs Down South. Excited. I mean, like, super excited. Super excited because I remember 50 episodes ago, we didn't really know what in the heck we were going to be doing with this and how great it would be, not great it would be, who knows. But I'm excited about the following on all of our social media handles, which is Facebook. Excuse me, hard to lose my voice tonight. Facebook, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, and obviously YouTube. Trying to get to 1,000 followers. So go over there, help us out, especially on our 50th episode anniversary. Go over there to YouTube, hit that, smash that like button, and follow. Trying to get to 1,000 followers, and then TikTok, Dogs Down South. The goal over there is 5,000 followers, man. 5,000. We are at a whopping 1,400. So we got a ways to go, but we can get there. So going to be having more presence on TikTok. I got my man Fish, my strange partner Fish. Fish, good to have you, man. I hadn't been able to hang out with you in a long time, man. So I'm privileged, man. How are you doing?
Good, man. Good. How has it been 50
Privileged.
episodes already?
50 episodes, man. 50. What were we doing 49 episodes ago? Who knows?
I don't know, man.
We thought we knew what the heck we were talking about, and I think we still, right now, think we know what the heck
Yeah,
we're talking about.
we're doing all right. We're doing all right.
Crazy,
50
man.
episodes later.
50 episodes later, man. So we're figuring it out. But hey,
Yep.
thanks for joining. Dude, let's hop right in, man. My voice is already acting up tonight. 22 days. 22 days until spring practice. That's
Yep.
weird, man. I just felt like it was, I mean, the season this year was crazy long anyways. I mean, we
It went
just
by
played
so
the national
fast.
championship. Yeah, like what? A month ago? We just played the national
Yeah,
championship?
the playoffs drug out though. Maybe because we lost in the opening round, but maybe that's why it felt like they took forever. But who knows? But yeah, to me, it seemed like the end of the season went fast, but the playoffs took
Mhm.
forever.
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I think 10 or 11 days between the last two rounds is way too long. I think six,
yeah.
7 days. They're good.
I didn't like that. I didn't like the national championship being like 10 days. I mean, it
Yeah,
kind of
a
had that
lot
Super
happened.
Bowl.
There were two rounds of the NFL playoffs between the semifinals and the championship. That's
Yeah,
way too long. I
yeah,
almost forgot what was happening. Like who was playing? Who?
yeah. Some people were like, they might have to like bump up the advertisements to remind people that the game was coming on.
I know.
It's so weird, man. Like so weird. Uh, and the fact that they're even talking about, you know, what does 16 or 14 teams look like in the near future? I know
Hmm.
the SEC and the Big Ten have been doing a lot of talking lately, and I think they're really close to strong arming some of this stuff, man, and kind of saying, hey, like you either go our way with what the playoffs look like, or we'll just do our own thing. What do you
Yeah.
think about that? I mean, that could make the season even longer?
And I'm cool with more football. I am, but it's that off period between games and like give them 2 weeks. Who needs three? Who needs a month off? Like in
Right,
the middle of a season or at the end, like right at the prime. Like the NFL doesn't do that. They go right into it, and they get a week
right,
off between the NFC AFC Championship weekend and the Super Bowl. They get a week. I mean,
right,
they get 2 weeks. They get a bye week, and then they play the Super Bowl.
right.
Like that's okay, but like I don't know. There were two rounds of playoff games the last between the championship and the semifinals, and that's just way too long.
Yeah,
Like they've got to fix that, I believe. Which
yeah,
might it's not a dire issue, but it's just something I noticed.
yeah. And I don't know. I mean, does the playoff committee, does the NCAA still have some, say in all that? Yeah, but I mean, I'll be honest with you. Like the SEC in general is getting ready to make a big move. News out of the SEC offices as early as Monday were that it is on the agenda this summer to talk about going to a 9-team SEC schedule and changing the playoff format. I'm sorry. Let me stop. changing the SEC championship format to a play-in game. They're just trying to make it more competitive.
Mm-hmm.
I think that
That makes
is.
sense.
I think it's a great idea because at the end of the day, maybe we need to get to a point where, I mean, we've gotten so used to in the BCS era, it was like if you lose a game, you were out, right? 4-team, 2-team playoff, and what is even 4? It was 2. So
Yep.
BCS, basically, the only people that got a piece of the pie were 1 and 2. So you lost the
Yep.
game, felt like you were done, right?
Yep.
But I think the new end all be all needs to be, you may need to get used to a 10-2 season, 9-3 season being a good season, right?
Yeah. Oh man, where's Mark Rick? He would love that.
Yeah.
He would be a playoff contender every year.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna say a profound statement, but I think Rick's teams always got better towards the end of the year.
I believe so too.
We were just rough out of the gates, but we would always play somebody tough out of the gates. I mean, you used to remember the first SEC game of the year used to be South Carolina, and every year we played them, man, we just knew it was going to be way harder than it should be for the mere reason that it was just South Carolina. I don't know why.
Yeah.
So,
well, for a few years it was because of Steve Spurrier. I'm not gonna lie.
True. Spurrier ended up back over there. That's true. That's
that
very
man
true.
haunts Georgia. He just haunted Georgia. He was our Nick Saban in the '90s, or he was Mark Rick's Nick Saban.
He still talks about Georgia, man. Every time the Georgia Florida game comes around, I see this, like, I don't know if it's a trolling Facebook account where they're like, Spurrier's made his pick, and I'm like, Spurrier still talks about this game? Like, isn't this guy got a golf game?
He's on Feinbaum. He's on Feinbaum all the time during the season, and yeah, Feinbaum always asks him about it.
Like, ain't this guy got a golf game to attend or something like that? I don't know. Like,
yeah, he can do it from the golf cart now with his phone.
That's true. Or you can play on that Tiger Woods SoFi tour, right?
Yep.
Dude, 2025, 2026 season. So, man, I'm hearing it left and right. This is the revenge tour for the Dogs, and I'm like, no, it's not. Like, it's still a tough schedule, man. I mean, what did the SEC? What did they do in this schedule? I don't know what they were thinking, and I'm still very intrigued to see what the 26, 27 schedules look like, as they will be, I guess, a new version of who we play and things of that nature. So I'm interested to see what that looks like.
With all the talent in the SEC, or apparent talent in the SEC, all the look good on paper talent we have, you'd think they could put together like an even schedule for everyone, and go into an extra game, I think would help that cause. I think it'd be easier to make a better schedule.
Yeah.
And give teams less opportunity to hire, or not hire, but play, like just cakewalks in the early games, or like in the third week in November, like we used to do before Georgia Tech. Who'd we play this year? UMass.
Sharp.
Right before
UMass. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I like to win, but I love watching better games. Like, I didn't even pay attention to that game. I just had it on because it was Georgia, but I was like doing other things, at the same time. It just,
I mean,
I don't know.
You got to think 9 games
would be great.
Yeah, 9 games are better for ticket sales. I mean, so you got to think, 9 games for Georgia would basically, you have an opener to get things right. You'd maybe have a team somewhere in the mix if you have injury problems that kind of offsets your bye game in the middle of the year, your bye week, excuse me. And then you would have Georgia Tech. I mean, Tech's always going to be that game on the schedule. I think we know that game is going to stay there. So I think it's win-win. And you can get creative. You can get really creative with that last SEC game. I mean, I don't know, maybe you do a play-in. Maybe you do a 1-8 type play-in game. And I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of things you can do, and I don't know where that's going to go. I know that Sankey and the Big Ten are really pushing to try to make, this thing right. They want to get to a formula that they don't have or question as much about. There was a lot of questions about this year, including, like you said, times and how much time between things, and did the right teams, and should were the 4 teams that won their respected, championship games, they have a disadvantage? I mean, all 4 of them, they lost. Was it all 4?
Yeah,
I think it was
it's
all
all
four.
four.
All four of them lost. So there's either a look at to go like, what was the reward? They got to sit. I don't know if that's a reward or not. Not in this day and
No,
age. I think
no,
more
it's
of the
not.
fact of maybe they get to play a home game might have been better. Like, you know?
When you keep the momentum, like if you play week after week after week after week, or you have less downtime, like you get the momentum and get on a roll, and things are clicking, and you just got 7 extra days to sit there and lose focus and get distracted or whatever. I think
Yeah.
getting the games, once, every weekend, boom, 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 boom. That seemed to be, and it worked. Like, look at the four teams that won.
Yeah.
Ohio
Yeah. No, I
State played
totally
every
agree.
round. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I totally agree, man. I think that there's still work to be done in this playoff format, and we'll see
mhm,
how. I mean, I don't think it's going to change next year. I would be
yeah.
shocked if it did. But I do think there's work to be done, and I think a lot of it's going to get strong armed by the SEC and the Big Ten. I think they're going to look and go, "Hey, look, we have the biggest brand, we have the biggest following, and we're all about you know letting other teams in, but not at the discredit of the fact that we are the ones that are fronting the bill for most of this stuff as far
Yeah,
as
no kidding.
TV and things of that nature. So
Yeah.
it'll be
Well,
interesting, man. But
I
go ahead.
hope they work on the seating issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
That's something I hope that they can actually work on before next year, because
hmm
that was brutal.
yeah. No, definitely. And I mean, when you look at the revenge part of the year, yeah, I get it. I mean, we have a lot to. You look at last year and you go, a lot of people are out there going, all right, well, one of the biggest reasons why Georgia wasn't successful last year was, Carson
Mhm.
Beck and his involvement with the receiving core had one of the worst years of, you know, in our Georgia pastime as far as drop catches.
So,
And
so do you think they were actually out there dropping the balls on purpose?
man, I don't think so, but
Like,
I
I've
do
heard
know.
so much crap about, like, Carson didn't have the locker room. There were disgruntled players because of him and his girlfriend's relationship somehow, or
Right.
I don't know. But, and then when Gunner came in, like, everybody's like hype and jumping up and down, like the whole demeanor on the sideline changed in that SEC championship game. And them dudes went to war for Gunner.
Yeah.
Like, why weren't they doing that already for Carson
Yeah.
Beck?
It's weird, man. And I'm the first person to say that I don't think that Kirby and Georgia present that culture of
I
you
wouldn't
know
think so.
selfishness, but I think it has to do a lot, Fish, with rapport and like camaraderie amongst your teammates, and
Hmm.
it's distractions. I mean, as well as I know, you can. I mean, me and you, if we could go back to our, I guess not our kid days of playing sports together, but let's just take, I guess, maybe, I don't know, church league basketball,
Oh
or
Lord.
softball. You had days where I went back there, man. You had days where it was like, man, you just church league softball, man, you couldn't not put it a place where nobody was at. And then you had
Yep.
some games where it was like, dude, I cannot find a hole anywhere. I can't
Nope.
even figure out how to hit the ball right now. That has
Yep.
nothing to do with your skill. That has
Mm-mm.
everything to do with your comfortable, your comfortableness and who you're playing with, how you
Yep.
feel. Are you loose? Are you intimidated? Or is it a mind game? Is it all about? I mean, but you also know there was teams you played. It was like, all right, man, you automatically had that thing of going, we're not winning tonight. So therefore,
Church
your
league
play was,
basketball, First
yeah,
Methodist. Oh my God. They
all
were
the time,
always stacked.
all the time,
Always
man,
stacked.
all the time.
That
So
was the
you just
team. That was
you
the
just
team.
came in and you just had fun because you knew you weren't going to have a chance.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there were some games where you were like, hey, we got to go out and perform. We have a great chance of winning this game. And you
Yep.
usually did. So I think it has a lot of, it's moxie, dude. It's moxie in some ways, and it's rapport and it's culture. And, we haven't had that at Georgia in a while. I mean, the locker, Stetson had the locker room. Fromm
Yeah,
had
you
the
did.
locker room. I mean, Aaron Murray had the locker room. It's not been something that has been a problem for Georgia.
Mm-mm.
It reared its head this past year, which is why I'm sure Georgia didn't do a lot of fighting for Carson Beck. It was probably what was in best interest for the team.
Yep.
Um, and I'm sure that there was conversation. You can't tell me that Carson, if he didn't, then God help Miami if we happen to meet up with them in the playoffs. If there was
Yeah.
no certain rapport with Kirby, because I don't want to be on the other side of Kirby's revenge tour. This year will be. You tell me that 7 starters are returning, but I will tell you there's a lot of talent on this team, and there's a lot of heart on this team. And Gunnar Stockton, I mean, I said this, I think, to you all in a group text. I said, it's eerily similar to the first year that Stetson Bennett took over this offense.
Mm-hmm.
Does the resemblance look the same? 3, 4-star kid. Nobody's really thinking about he's the guy that's going to take us to. Nobody would have looked back and said Stetson's going to be a guy that wins us 2 national championships.
Heck no, he's 5'10" and a half. Weighed $170, soaking wet.
Yeah.
He can't come in and run back to back. There's no way.
Yeah. So this
Until
is
he did it.
eerily. This is eerily, and I don't want to take another show over, but this is eerily something we're going to talk about as the season draw nears and around spring practices. But this is a year that is very, very similar to the first year of our national championship since the one that everybody goes back to in '80 and goes, that's the last one you had. It's eerily similar this year when you look at us on paper. So we will talk about it, but I don't think this is a revenge tour year. But I will ask the question before we move on to the meat of the show tonight: is Fish, if you could, if you could look at a season-defining game this year, right? You look at the schedule and you go put your finger on a game. What do you think your game this year is as a season-defining game where it could go straight, straight into the playoffs and Georgia is possibly an untouchable force, or it could really wreck the demeanor of this team this year? What do you think
Alabama.
that game is way too early?
Alabama, and I hate to keep saying Alabama, 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 because I can't stand Alabama. But that game, that's a perfect example of how our season went. We every game, even the games we were supposed to win 52-0, we come out of the gate so slow, so sloppy, so just discombobulated, and then go into halftime. Kirby would call Jesus, and then they would come out in the second half playing like a team that could run the table, that could win the whole thing, that actually had a chance, that everyone thought would win the whole thing, and we almost won that game. We were down, 28-3, 20 something. It was a lot. We were down a lot. And then I quit watching it and then came home. That was the weekend we lost power because of the hurricane. So I was watching it on a tablet and I turned it back on just for, shits and giggles, pardon my French. And boom, like we're about to take the lead.
Yeah.
And, just we could never put a whole game together, and we didn't put a whole season together. Just like that.
Yeah. I think if we're talking about like psyche, definitely it's Alabama, right? But I'll be honest with you, the one that I put my finger on is not actually Alabama. I do think that a game that stands out to me, and I would agree with Alabama from just a mental stuff. I mean, we just know, I can't even, you couldn't even name it. When was the last time that, we beat Alabama during the regular season? Like it's 10, 15 years ago. I mean,
been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute, man. But the game that stands out to me is we very, very early on head to Neyland. We head to Neyland, third game of the season, and it's on the road. And so we got to get our big boy pants on really quick. And I do think that it's a really big game for us because we tend to play well in Tennessee, but in the past few years, Tennessee's landed at the 5th or 6th game of the year, And so this is early. This is an SEC opener on the road for us, right? So I look at Tennessee and I look at that game, and I'm like, that's gonna be a tricky one. And the thing is, man, and the reason I say that that's a really important game is because depending on how that game turns out, you got to come home and you got to play that mental Alabama game, So it's a tricky little gauntlet at the beginning of the year. You get Tennessee at Neyland, and then you come back and play Alabama at home.
Year 2,
that starts off your October. It starts off your October. So
Yeah. Wow.
tricky, man. But
Yeah.
hey, we won't, we won't worry about it right now. I'm not worried about it. I just, as you probably do, as I do, you process things, and we start looking at spring practice, and we start looking at G Day, and then we kind of start determining where we're at. And believe me, every team is trying to figure out who they are as soon as they step on that practice field for spring. And some spring practices start a little bit earlier than Georgia's, and some a little bit
Yeah.
later. So everybody's going to figure out who they are. But I thought it would be cool tonight to talk about like some breakout people. So if you're a listener that's like, hey, like what are we looking at this year, and who do we think is going to be some players that stand out? Now, I'm not talking necessarily just freshmen that we don't know. Like, who do we not know, and who's going to be the guy that we need to look for? But I'm also not talking about the guy who really just had a really standout season already. And obviously, they're going to be a person we have to lean on this year on offense, defense, and special teams. I'm more talking about a name that stands out that goes, hey, man, if they have a breakout year, which we know they're capable of, where can we, how much can that position group elevate to help Georgia win an SEC championship again and go back to, the playoffs and possibly national championship? And I do think we have a really great team. I think a lot of people are thinking the same thing. Georgia's definitely a contender for the SEC championship this year. Some people will have us picked. A lot of that's off of we're getting the Alabama way and the Kirby Smart old Nick Saban way, right? But we're going to have a heavy load. But let's start really quick, Fish. Name. I know I jotted some names down, but don't let me skew you. But give me one player. We'll kind of go one for one here. Give me one player that you'd like to be that you don't think we've heard of on offense, and who we need to hear from this year and could be a standout this spring coming into G Day. Who's that for you?
Any running back.
Any
We
running
have
back. Okay.
we have got to be able to establish the run. That's who we are. That's our identity. And we could not do that this year. If it wasn't injuries, it was something else. I mean, we've got to get it together. We've got to turn that around.
Yeah.
And I don't, Nate Frazier had his breakout year this year, but I'll that's my guy. Like he's gonna have to come out. We need 1,000-yard back.
Mm.
We need somebody. We need somebody, and I believe he can do it. I want him to have a super awesome season next year.
Yeah.
We're gonna need it, I believe.
That's
And
a good
sorry,
one,
I
man.
just said super awesome. My bad.
No, it's good. No, you're. I thought of that, but it's definitely a view that I did not think of thoroughly. I agree with
Yeah.
you, man. The old Georgia teams that won the national title and also contended for the national championship were teams that had really, either we had a really good running back room that
Hmm.
was succeeding and getting positive yards, or we had the Todd Gurley's, Nick Chubbs, who just they got yards, man. Regardless of who was blocking for them, they were going to get yards. I mean, I
Yeah.
go back, man, and I'm watching Gurley and Chubb and Sony, and I'm like, where is that, man? Like, where
Hmm.
is that vision and that the tackle breaking of those guys? Like, but we have great talent. We recruit really great talent.
Dude,
So I
how
don't
about
know.
James Cook? Sorry, not to get off track,
Yeah,
but wow.
yeah,
How about James Cook, man? Ooh,
a guy who thrived in a positional type role.
he
But
was a
man,
huge reason we won the Natty that year. Huge
yeah.
reason.
And then he goes into the NFL, and he's a
He's a stud,
lockdown
man.
stud. Yeah.
He fumbled. He fumbled in his first preseason game, and then he didn't see the field again until like the middle of that season. And that man, I don't think has fumbled but once since then. And that was his rookie
Uh,
year. And this is year
yeah.
3. This was year 3 for him, I think.
Yeah.
Or was it year 2? Year 2 or 3. Either way, the man don't fumble anymore. Man,
Yeah.
he's fun to watch. He's great.
Yeah, man. Cook has definitely turned some heads in the league, and
Yep.
I think Buffalo would be crazy not to lock him down. I
Oh,
mean,
I think they're going to give him something. They're
yeah,
going to give him a long term.
yeah. That's crazy, man. And to remember And you hope he stays healthy and does the same things. I mean, Dalvin was a great back as well, and he hit
Yep.
some injuries, but if he can stay healthy, man, he's that kind of back. He's not a bruiser, and he's very elusive, and he takes good hits and he takes good falls.
Yep.
I hope I don't jinx him, but he's a
He,
guy that can stay healthy and could be a powerhouse for the next five,
he's
6
a
years.
he's a multi-tool, man. He can
I agree.
block. I mean, he can his pass pro has gotten way better since college, like a lot better. Not that it was really bad in college, but in the NFL, like he's got Josh Allen's blindside most of the
Yeah.
time, and he's doing a great job. He can catch, man. He's a good receiver. He can run. He
Mhm.
can do it all. He's great.
Old James Cook, man.
Yep. I
Good
watched a
call on
lot
the
of the
running back.
Bills this
I
year.
agree. Good call on that. I got a couple down here, but we can go back and forth too. There's another one. I'll give you two for me. I'll give you one on the offensive line that I think. Returning one starter, and I know we rotate a lot on that offensive line. So it's very deceiving as well as the D line. One guy for me that's a name that you might not know until G Day and spring is Bo Hughley. Bo Hughley
Hmm.
is a mammoth human being. 6'7", 315, 320. He's just a very big boy.
Yeah,
And I'm hearing
that's
great
huge.
things. Yeah, I'm hearing great things about Bo Hughley, and I think he's somebody that will have to take on some snaps this year. And I think that's a good thing because we know that, I think Bobo is going to be probably our day one center. And he did a great job, but Bobo needs to be eating as we speak. He needs to be eating as like now.
He needs to be
Um,
lifting and
yeah,
eating at the same time. If he can
yeah,
do it,
man.
do it.
I mean, you need to be curling. On leg day, you need to be doing arm day with wings. I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
it's just how it's got to be. And then another name to me, another name that could be a breakout player is I think Lawson Lucky probably had the best year of all the tight ends last year. Would you agree or disagree with
Uh,
that?
I think he did too. And oh, poor Delp. Such a
Yeah,
letdown. Such
yeah,
a letdown. I think that had a lot to do with the way our offense went as well.
yeah,
But, yeah, Lawson Lucky has got to have a good year next year. I think he's due for a breakout season. We
yeah,
need it.
yeah. I think he turns the corner. Other names, Colby Young. We have not had a clear answer on if we'll see him. I don't think there's going to be a clear answer. I think Kirby is not a fashiony type person. He knows that
Hmm.
everybody heard the verdict of what went on in his case, and I think you'll just see Colby Young nonchalantly at spring practice, and he'll probably answer questions about it. But I
Yeah.
think Colby Young could possibly, if he has his act together, I think he stood a chance before all this happened last year to be a, a vital role in the receiver room. And
Hmm.
believe me, the receiving room got better. I think it got better this year. And then notables. I have Ryan Puglisi on here. I think we're gonna have. I'm not. It's not that I
Oh,
don't
it's
want
it's a
Gunner.
battle. It's a battle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You can
I,
you
I
can
don't. I
say
don't.
it. It's a battle.
I don't not want Gunner. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to start that demeanor, but I do think that Ryan Puglisi is going to give Gunner a run for his money. He's got a
Uh,
very good arm.
I'm
He's
hearing a
six
lot about
three,
him.
and he's the real deal, man. So I will tell you, I don't dislike our chances with either one of them as of right now. Now I want to see
Hmm.
more of him on the field, and we'll definitely see that. But he will give
I
him a
like
run for his money.
I like that name, man. He sounds like an old '60s boxer. Rocky
Puglisi.
Marciano versus Ryan Puglisi.
It's crazy because it's like, man, I've heard it said Puglisi, and I've heard it said Puglisi, and I'm like, I kind of like the Puglisi, the poo.
Puglisi.
I like the poo in
Pooh.
it.
Yep.
Yeah, man. And then on defense, I'll let you throw a stab out there. Give me somebody who you need to see come out of the dark corner and be an asset for Georgia this year that we might not be thinking about.
I mean, I know you got him down on the list, and I hate to go.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
hate to go. I hate to go on list. But Chris Cole,
Yeah,
number 18, I'm looking forward to watching him wreak havoc. He's going
yeah,
to be our next edge.
yeah,
I think. I think he's going to be the next guy to step up
yeah,
this year. I think he's going to have a huge year.
yeah. I like Chris Cole, man. I like his length.
Yeah,
He
me too.
reminds
God,
me
he's
of
tall.
he reminds me of like a healthy. I don't know, man. It wasn't that it wasn't Michael had a bad year. I mean, I know Michael had some injury things, but
It,
I
it
feel
was
like
it was under he underperformed.
yeah,
It's that's what he underperformed a little bit.
yeah. But he reminds me of like a Michael, like in his prime, right? Like
Hmm.
when Michael was a little, I call him just, I mean, a little leaner, a little quicker. Chris Cole has a chance to do some big things. I think Christian Miller's going to have to do some things that might be a given. Because he's the sole returning starter on the defensive line, which
Hmm.
I'm not concerned with that because I trust Trey Scott in that demeanor out there. I trust Nduzi, and I think we're going to go in the portal and probably grab us an end.
Yeah.
Or I think we're going to grab us an end in the portal after spring is over. But I like what I'm seeing from. I'm hearing a lot of good things about Ajonye's back healthy. I think Ajani is a name nobody got to see a lot of because he had a couple games and then he just went away because he that Nagy, he was just part of that Nagy injury bug that we had last year as far as
Yeah.
him and McLeod and dude, it was like we had the defensive line blues last year, man.
Yeah. Bad. Not what we're used to for sure out of
No,
Georgia. Just it was off. Like there were a couple of things. Like our secondary wasn't great, like they had been, and it's easy to get spoiled, especially when you went back to back. I mean, it's you expect that all the time. Expectations went through the roof, and we were preseason number one. The game came out, we're the best team on the game. Just all the
yeah,
hype in the world, man, all the hype, and maybe it wasn't that bad a season. I mean, we did win the SEC, we did make the playoffs, which that's the goal. I mean, the goal is to win the Natty, but for most teams, just making the playoffs is the goal.
yeah,
But it was definitely an underperforming season.
yeah,
From some of our position groups that we're not used to struggling like that, and the D line is one of them.
yeah. We're severely. I mean, we're gonna be, man. We're severely critical of the
Yeah,
team, and so we're always gonna feel that way. And
it's kind of our
uh,
thing on the
I agree
podcast.
with that. Yeah, I agree. I mean,
So
we're
to be
severely over.
to be critical.
I mean, you got to be right. That's what podcasts are for. It's about the people who, it's about the people who see something, they give their opinion about it, and people choose to follow their opinion or go,
Yep.
they're full of crap.
Yep.
And so, yeah, we'll
Exactly.
let you fill in the gap on that. And then a name that I think is way too early to know much about, but I got a hunch, man. I got a hunch about Elijah Griffin. I think he's just going to be a monster, dude. I think
Yeah.
he's going to be your Jalen Carter type guy. I'm hearing nothing but great things. I'm hearing he was an absolute menace in the Under Armour All Star game and for the week during practice. He was unblockable. The words I heard were unblockable and menace. And I'm like,
Hmm.
dang, bro, like these are the
Nice.
best offensive linemen. These are guys that are going to their, teams receiving probably $1-2 million NIL deals to go play offensive line at these places and will be
Yep.
future NFL draft picks probably, and they can't block this guy. So, and I mean, there's got to be a reason that we decided to not really go in on Justice Terry, right? So, I mean, we let him go. I mean, Justice Terry came out and said it. He said, honestly, Texas and NIL deal was just a little bit better, and that's fine, right? But I
Can't
will
hate
tell you
him. Can't
something.
hate the man for that.
You can't.
It sucks, but he went where the money is, and there's a good shot at winning. Who's
Yeah,
to say Georgia
yeah,
has a better shot than Texas this year? We're both right there.
yeah.
We're at the top tier. 1, 2. Power rankings, preseason polls. You know, so good
No, I
job.
totally agree.
Good luck to him.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. It's tricky. I mean, we just if is and this is other news before we move into power rankings, but we just replaced our NIL, our Classic City NIL president, whatever you call it. He was replaced. I think the guy's last name now is Pope. Don't quote me on that. But there was obviously something in the mix that people didn't like about how we were going about some NIL things, and so we shall see if NIL
Well,
gets better.
it's by championship, man. Like that's the era we're in. As long as there's no cap,
Right.
it's just full blown balls to the wall. go spend all the money you can. If you got the deepest pockets, you get the best players, you got the best shot at winning. You
No
know,
cap.
and that,
No cap, bro.
I'm just saying,
It's no cap. I'm
it's
saying you're not
brutal.
lying.
It's brutal.
Oh man. So yeah, man. I think those are some definite players to look for, and I'm hoping. I mean, honorable mention for me too, Justin Williams, 5-star linebacker that kind of went silent on us, but I don't think he went silent. I mean, we rotate so much on defense that like nobody didn't get in for key snaps last year. I mean, Justin Williams was in some key snaps. Chris Cole was in some key snaps. Obviously, KJ Bolden. You got
Ooh,
you know
yeah, I
you got
forgot.
K.
How did I forget that?
Yeah, but
Defensive
he's not.
breakout season.
I think
Ooh,
KJ had a breakout season last year, though. I think he
you
broke
think
out as a
so?
freshman.
I don't
I
know,
mean,
man.
not stats, but like nobody saw KJ the way that Georgia's built. You don't see freshmen coming in and being a player that plays 80% of the snaps their first year.
I like that
Hard,
he didn't shy away from contact.
yeah.
He wasn't
I
back
go
there
well,
playing like prime time. I mean, he wasn't Cam Chancellor either, but he didn't shy away from contact.
yeah.
Safeties
I'm
aren't
excited,
supposed
man.
to.
I'm excited. We're going to see. I'm hoping to see a couple of these names from each of them. Let's move into way too early SEC power rankings. The cool thing about off season and summer, we get a chance to bust into the SEC and talk a little bit about some of the teams we play and don't focus primarily on Georgia. And so we're going to do that tonight. Um, and this is my kind of way too early, but during this time, we're also going to do a fear factor kind of thing, and we're going to rate it from 1 to 10. It's basically one of those, who do we fear the most that needs to be really nervous about this year? In other words, like, hey, we've either recruited well, we've not done well in the past, and coach got another shot. We this could be Florida, this could be Arkansas, this could be or
Florida.
do we have some Texases and some Georgias and some Alabamas, and I don't know, Alabama could be in there. But what do some of these teams have to fear? So as we kind of plunge through these, we're going to give them like 60 seconds or so and talk about their do they have, what's their fear factor number for this year, and what is this year the year they need to be successful, and do they have anything to be worried about? We'll start at the bottom. My 16th team is Mississippi State. Man, they anybody who was successful this past year went and found another team. So, man, I
Yeah.
feel really, really bad, really, really bad for Mississippi State. But Fish, what do you think, man? Like, give me a number, like 10 being the worst. Like they need to be concerned about this year, or 1 being the least of concern. This should, no real hot seat warnings, no programs going in shambles. What do you think about Mississippi State?
I'll give them 7. I don't think.
7,
What are the expectations?
right?
So I don't think if they have a bad season, anyone's going to be very surprised. I don't think the coach, unless he just bombs, needs to worry about being on the hot seat because last year was his first year. I think now you got to give a coach 3 years. That's fair, I think, before you pull the trigger. Unless someone else becomes available and shows interest in coming that you're interested in or, is hot or, whatever's going on. So, yeah, a 7. I'm going to give Mississippi State a 7.
7, 7. I like it. I like a 7. I mean, I think I'm gonna go even a little. I'm gonna go right in the middle with them. I mean, a 5. I love what
I
you said
thought
about
about that.
expectations. Expectations are, they understand that Mississippi State is still rebuilding. I mean, Van Buren moved on. I don't know how smart that was.
I think he should have stayed.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know, man. But I mean, we're obviously going to we're going to break these teams down. We do a starting around May. We start over the summer to give us some content before the year. We start to do our SEC deep dive preview, where we'll preview every single team, talk about who are the players to look for, what we predict, what we think their record will look like, and talk about keys to doing well in the SEC. But just ankle deep, I think expectations are not huge right now. There is an expectation that we need to recruit and continue to build culture and try to get Mississippi State. I just think Mississippi State in the SEC right now is getting beat by NIL. Would you agree?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
some of the bottom four teams, even though Arkansas shouldn't be,
Right.
they just need somebody. They need Uncle Sam, not Uncle Sam, but Sam Walton to put in some money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Walmart. They got Walmart money, man. They could buy a natty if they wanted to.
Uncle Sam, man, that's crazy. 15, man. 15 may be an eye opener, but it's gonna be one of those years, man. And like I said, I'm not deep diving on these so we can get through them all, but Kentucky is my 15 way too early power ranking for spring, right?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I've talked about the demise of the Wildcats and Mr. Mark Stoops starting last year. And this is another year, man, where I think we can't ignore the fact of he has underperformed with a lot of talent on his roster. And this year's talent is not near what he's had in the past 2 or 3 years. The only thing I can think he has is maybe the Zach Calzada revenge plot against Auburn that might still fail. But I'm giving Kentucky, man, a 9. They need to be very, very concerned about Mark Stoops and this season and the Kentucky faithful losing any interest. I mean, you finally got to the point where you were seeing Kroger Stadium full, right?
Yeah.
It was no longer a basketball school, right? Just a basketball school. And you were super excited, about all these. You went and got in the portal and you hit some players up. You used some of that basketball money, Honestly, they might should have used the money in basketball because they're not having a great basketball year either that they normally have. But like,
No, they're
what's
not.
your not? It's for me, it's 9, man. They got to be very worried, and you got to be worried if Mark Stoops' time has ran its course at Kentucky after this year. What's your number for Kentucky Fish?
I'd say 9 as well. I think 9's fair, but I think mine's for a different reason. I think they
Okay,
need to be worried about not firing Mark Stoops, but him moving on. I don't think he's got the donor support that he wants because
yep.
after last year, and why would he?
Mhm.
I mean, he hasn't earned, you know, people just throwing in their life's work, their income, their hedge fund or whatever. He hasn't earned that, and maybe I think in his mind he thinks he had. And, last year he got some pieces. He had a quality defense. The man had a playoff defense,
Right.
but the offense was so bad, and poor Brock, just couldn't get it together. I don't. Something was going on with him. That's
Yeah,
why, I
man.
mean, he retired at the end of the season. So, I mean, something was going on with him. He wasn't right.
He probably been hit so many times that we just didn't understand. Where he
Hmm.
probably was like, man, what else? If I can't go to Kentucky, and to me, I don't. I think Vandergriff saw the writing on the wall, and he might have thought, man, I stand a chance of being hopped by Gunner as well.
Hmm.
And so I think that's what would have happened. And he goes to Kentucky, gets a fresh start,
Yeah.
and man, he just wasn't protected. He looked like Mahomes in the Super Bowl. That was every game though. When he had 2 seconds to throw the football, and I don't know if it's a great reflection of what he could do at Kentucky, coming off of all the training and the development he had at Georgia. You were thinking big things when the
Yeah.
line play was terrible,
Yeah. I
and
was a
the
big
defense
Brock.
didn't really hold
I
up.
was a big Brock supporter. I was a
Yeah,
huge Brock supporter.
yeah. I'm just even a I'm even more of a huge Mark Stoops downer. So therefore, it kind of
I
just off
know.
balances.
I know. You are so hard on that man.
I've been spot on with him, man. It's just been like, I feel like if you give me some of that defensive line, you give me a couple of those guys that are going to go first, second round. I forget their names. Dion, man, he's a big boy, man. He's been there for 3 years with Kentucky. I just can't.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I
Yeah.
mean, Dumas Johnson, man. I mean, he had a tear. I mean, and don't get me wrong. Like Johnson, he'd have been playing a role this year, but I think Pop would have been more successful on the Georgia defense this year. But we don't know what
Because he
kind of
had more
NIL.
around him.
Right. We don't know what kind of game changing money got thrown out him, and we might have had to cut our costs with that. I mean, we have to pick. There's so much behind the scenes we don't know about anymore where we
I
have to
know
cut
there
costs
is.
and
There's so much going on. It's
yeah.
not just recruiting, recruiting, recruiting. It's NIL budget. You know,
Uh-huh.
on top of recruiting, which is something that I think I don't know. It doesn't seem to be. It's important, but I don't think you have to go show up at somebody's house anymore. I think if Kirby
Yeah.
Smart sent me a Zoom call and I'm sitting there as a junior in high school and he was like, "Hey man, you want to come
Yeah.
play football at Georgia?" Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, it's been my dream my whole life. Heck yeah, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's changed. The dynamic has really changed, man.
Hmm.
14, I got Vanderbilt. This may be low. I mean, who knows? I know that, Pavia is the big splash, but some people wonder, did Pavia, is he a 1 year wonder? Do we really see that next year from him? It's a safe place for Vanderbilt. Honestly, I mean, Clark Lee, I mean, he had a really some people maybe look at it and go, he had a really great year last year. Some people may look like it and they maybe go, look, if from a terms of being a Vanderbilt alum and a Vanderbilt, you know, person who's putting money in pockets, maybe Vanderbilt's like, no, man, it's an 8 for me this year. Like he's got to win because he has Pavia and he has the most talent he's going to have around him in a long time.
Yeah,
I, for one, am saying that if you're not giving Clark Lee the resources he needs to go out and to be 8-4, 9-3, then you can't give him anything higher than a. I mean, honestly, for me, it's very low. I'm at like a panic meter of like a 3 with Vanderbilt. I think they're going to be totally cordial about being even killed this year, whether they're 6-6 or 7-5. I think that will be a win for them. Anything
hmm,
below that, they'll shrug their head, but you can't look at Vanderbilt's roster and be like, we expect the playoffs. Maybe Pavia does, but nobody else really does. What do you think about
no.
Vandy? What are you giving Vandy?
I don't know if the panic meter is really high, but I agree that that you know I don't think Vanderbilt fans are going, oh, it's natty or nothing.
Yeah,
I think 7-8 games is a
yeah,
super successful season for them.
yeah.
And who knows, is Pavia getting better? He might be a little bit better next year. I mean, who knows? But I know after the season they had last year, the expectations are going to be higher.
It can't just be Pavia though. We've seen that, and we'll know. We'll talk about the supporting cast, who's coming in. What do they land in the portal,
Yeah.
recruiting, and do they have enough people around him to make a splash this year? The people that I will tell you, this is my first team that is going to be a real panic meter. Is I have Arkansas at 13. Obviously, Sam Pittman has what's called a life support year this year. So he goes probably and he says, "Hey, look, we have our pieces. We have our OC, with a second year under his belt, and we have some great portal hits. We got some recruiting things that landed. Like this is our year, and for them, like in order for Pitt not to get fired, man, like they." And it seems like a low. It seems like well he can do that. It's hard, man. But I think you got to be 6-6 or better this year for them to even look and go, I can't take this seriously. Like you can't go 5-7 and with a couple of shoulda, woulda, couldas.
If if he doesn't win more than 6 games, he's gone.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think they have to turn around and give him the opportunity to do that based solely off of Taylor Green and returning Petrino as his offensive coordinator. So I mean, the pieces around him, if they're just decent, like Taylor Green is one of the better arms in the SEC this year. This is not a big quarterback year that we know of yet for the SEC, not like it was last year.
Mm-mm.
So Taylor Green is one of the top quarterbacks returning for any SEC team. So it'll
Yeah.
be interesting to see what that looks like. But I think they need to be nervous. Arkansas needs to be nervous, and the fan base doesn't care. They wanted Pittman out 2 years ago, so
Yeah.
I don't think the fan base cares.
I'm
Moving along,
sure I'm sure Grant is ready for him to to move on.
I'd be curious, man. I've tried to have Grant on about. I want to know what he thinks about Pittman. Me personally,
Me
like I'll
too.
take I'll take Pittman back as our offensive line coach. I mean,
Heck yeah, dude.
one of my favorite coaches ever to coach the offensive line, George
Yeah, I
Butt.
like him a lot too.
I just want to hear him say, "Yes, sir," and we get this another 5-star lineman that can actually block this time. It's
I
crazy,
know,
right?
right? Yeah.
Nuts.
Him or
12.
Matt Rule.
Matt Matt Rule, yeah. Matt Rule showed his that's another show, man. But ever since he showed his whole demeanor at Nebraska and his sloppiness,
Not
I don't
Matt
know.
Rule. Not Matt Rule. Sorry. Luke.
Oh, Matt Luke. Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't dislike Matt Luke. I like Matt Luke. But
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head and said, I don't think Matt Luke wanted to do it Kirby's way. I think he kind of was more on the philosophy of I'm a little bit more easygoing and I don't roll like that type thing. Maybe. I don't know. Oklahoma is my 12th team. I think the panic meter in Oklahoma is about a 7. And I'll tell you why. We bring in a new OC from Washington State. They get this quarterback in the portal with him to come. So you got a new OC. This is supposed to be, I mean, this is the DC guru, man.
Brent Venables.
Brett Venables is supposed to be a guy that defense is not the problem. So you bring in a high-powered OC. They're putting all their cards into this quarterback from Washington State. We'll see how it happens, but I do think this is for Venables. There's a lot of things happening here. New OC. You can't play the blame game on the OC this year.
Nope.
You can't play the blame game on defense. I think it's a 7, maybe an 8 as far as panic meter for Oklahoma. Where you got them at, Fish?
8. Easy. I think Venables has been there long enough. And after the season, oh my God, he had last year. Thank God they beat Alabama. And not because they beat Alabama, but for his sake.
Right.
And donor sake. And
right.
NIL possibly donating sake. I think that was a huge saving grace for him last year. And I mean, I know that we're not talking about coaches individually. We're talking about the team. But yeah, definitely an 8. I think the offense needs to put up.
Yeah. No, definitely. I Oklahoma, like there's 3 or 4 teams that are 7 and above easy this year. Next team on my list is Missouri. They could have floated anywhere from 11 to 8 for me because there's some what ifs in there, but Missouri quick and easy for me. Missouri lost a lot. Obviously Luther Burden and just replacing a lot of pieces. Weiss on offense. Defense gained some things. I have no idea. I want to be a fly on the wall in how Damon Wilson ended up at Missouri. It had to be a good paycheck for him. That had to be the only way. But I think the panic meter with Eli Drinkwitz is, I think they're at like a 5. And the reason why it's low, but I still keep it at a 5, and they've come off some good seasons, is because, you just never know how quickly the tides can turn. Now we've introduced 10-2, 9-3 to the Missouri faithful, and if you do anything less, it's definitely a coaching problem, right? So this is a 5 panic me. There is some panic there. You won't see it till later in the season. The schedule does present itself to be fairly easy, but still a lot of unknowns.
The same schedule from last year.
Yeah, a lot of unknowns at Missouri. Where you got them at?
5.
What do you think the deciding factor of them?
Offense.
I mean, I don't know.
Their offense, their defense is going to be good.
Yeah.
More often than it's not. So, but the offense lost a lot. I know they still have, decent athletes, good players, good role players, but I think Luther Burden was a huge hit. Huge hit.
First round talent, man. First round talent.
All day long.
I got Auburn at 10, and I'll let you give them I'll let you go with your panic meter number first, and then I'll tell you mine. What do you got on Auburn?
Do you want to hear my wife's, or do you want to hear mine? Because my wife is the diehard, hardcore Auburn fan who is full-blown panic mode. This
10.
dude needs to
10,
have a good year. This dude needs to have a good season. Hugh Freeze or else bye. Because 10, the way he's been mishandling the quarterback situation there is so frustrating, and I feel so bad for her.
Yeah.
When we're sitting there watching Auburn games and she's just yelling, and I'm like, man, I know. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. all the rotating the quarterbacks, and I think the two-back system can work, but oh my God, when you get down to the 1 yard line and some dude who hasn't seen the field all day finally gets up off the bench and comes in, what do you think they're going to do?
Yeah. Yeah,
It's so
man.
predictable. It's such a terrible, terrible, terrible strategy, and I think it's
Yeah.
so mishandled, and that's so surprising because that's Hugh Freeze.
Mhm.
Offense is supposed to be his bag, man. That's his thing,
Yeah,
and
you're not
it's
wrong,
just
man. My
so.
my panic meter on Auburn is a 10.
Yeah.
They have recruited well. Top 10 recruiting classes the past 3 years. Jackson Arnold is in Auburn, Alabama, in classes as we speak. Maybe I don't know if they go to classes anymore after they make more than 2 million.
Who knows?
Uh, you know,
They could just buy an A.
um, yeah. So it's wild, man. It's 10 for me. They got one of the best receivers in the SEC coming back next year. Big
Ooh,
sophomore year
if
along
he
with
they
Ryan Williams.
ooh. I wonder
So
after the next portal window, man.
yeah,
Depending,
yeah.
after they've practiced together, him and Jackson Arnold a little bit. If he doesn't like what he sees, ooh, come to Georgia, come to Georgia.
I hadn't thought about that, but
I want that receiver. That dude is
yeah,
good.
yeah, I agree with you on that, man. So I
He's a
got
baller.
Auburn, and it's a 10, man. Hugh Freeze has got to. I mean, this guy was the quarterback whisperer, the guru of all coaches that
Supposed
was
to be.
coming back, and
Supposed to be.
I mean, there's no blame game. All the coaches that were under him have moved on. He's re-landscaped the offense. He's re-signed the defensive guy from heading out of town. He was headed to Durkins was headed to maybe Ohio State. I don't know. I mean, but they gave him a whopping raise to stay. I think it's a 10, and I think anything below 8-4 is a huge letdown at Auburn this year. 8-4 might be a letdown.
I think they have to do better than that.
Yeah,
I
I mean, I
think
think
nine and three are better.
yeah, I think 8-4 is a letdown. I think anything below is huge, but yeah, I think the expectations is 9-3 or above, and a playoff berth. I mean, you went and spent the money. I mean, they might. I haven't looked at it, and we don't know to the end of everything, but they may have spent some Ohio State money on recruiting and Jackson Arnold and some of these portal guys. I mean, they definitely reloaded. We're only going to do the last 8. We'll do the next 8 on the next show as well. But 9, I got Texas A&M. Very simple with Texas A&M. Had a really great, as I call it, freshman campaign for Texas A&M. A lot of pieces are returning for Texas A&M. I don't think the meter's very high for them. I think we're still under what they did last year. I think this is a continued build. I think it's like a 3, 2, 3. The only thing I would think the panic meter will be about is it is one of those jobs that has seen Jimbo Fisher take way too long to make the dynamic of the program really relevant. And I think they've
Yeah.
spent big time money. You have a big time fan base that is very impatient. So the only thing I could say with the panic meter would be at 3 would be is that they have another year like last year where they're right on the cusp and they really don't perform well in the games. I mean, if they beat Texas, they're in the SEC championship. I
Yep.
mean, and
With a shot at the
that's
playoffs.
not easy to say, but still,
No.
your first year, what's your number for Texas A&M, Fish?
Oh, no concern here whatsoever. 3 is perfect. Them and LSU are actually the 2 teams out of the West. I'm glad we don't have to play.
Yeah, I like
Honestly,
LSU this
next
year,
year.
but I'm
Yeah.
sure Brian Kelly will figure out how to screw that up.
Oh,
So,
he'll find a way to put his stamp on it, and don't just drop
yeah,
something bad will happen.
yeah, man, something bad. So, yeah, that's our bottom 9. We will look at our top 8 on the next show. We'll look at our a lot of the top 8. There's not many of those teams that the number's very high, but I would definitely tell you there's one team that sticks out to me, and I want to talk about it before we move on. We'll kind of pluck it out of the top 8, and then we'll revisit it next time. But what is your number for Alabama? I will preempt this and say this. I really feel like the grading system has Alabama having one of the better rosters coming back this year. A lot of defensive returning starters, offensive line returns a lot of guys. Ryan Williams, that receiving core gets better. They do some things in the portal. They add Ryan Grubb on the offensive side of the ball. They got to find him a quarterback. There's no lack of talent there. They just got to figure out the right fit, right? But what is the panic meter with this roster? Now, here's what you got to think, Fish. This is a roster that is talent-wise. I mean, you don't have any names jumping out at you. You got the Ryan Williams name, but you don't have any big names right now just hitting you in your face. You won't know until after spring ball. But what do you think your panic meter is for Alabama this year?
Well, from a fan's perspective, 10, but from my opinion, not high, maybe a 6, just because just a lot of unknown factors.
Yeah.
DeBoer is good with quarterbacks. He worked some magic with Penix. And after Penix was actually able to stay healthy, but he put up some good numbers. DeBoer's good, really good with the offense. So
Yeah.
I think and the defense is going to be solid just because Saban's leftovers are still there.
Yeah.
And they were solid last year. They were decent last year.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's very high. 6.
Yeah. I gotta disagree, man. I gotta go a little bit higher. I gotta go 7. And I'll tell you my ramifications with this. I think Kalen DeBoer this year will feel it from a term of he doesn't really get a break in the schedule. He's got to go to Neyland. He's got to go to Athens. He's got to go to a lot of places that last year were check marks on his slate. Texas A&M does come. Texas A&M does come to Tuscaloosa this year, but Oklahoma does come to Tuscaloosa. But then, you add the intrigue of what does Auburn look like at the end of the year, right?
And they have to go. Oh, they have to go to Auburn. It's in Auburn this year.
Yeah,
so
they got to go to Auburn.
Tough.
So there's a lot of a lot of things right there that are really unknown. And I would say that if Kalen DeBoer doesn't get to the playoffs this year and really make a name, what starts to happen in recruiting? What starts to happen to that now third year good, great name of Nick Saban kind of well in the distance of Alabama? And this is now Kalen DeBoer's team, and Alabama starts to go, okay, your third year, but you don't have that talent from your second year, right? This is a very good team on paper, Fish, and we're going to really look at them. Probably one of the best rosters. I mean, when you look at it, when Athlon Sports Magazine comes out, I think Bama's going to be in the top 3 as far as rosters out there between returning, portal, and recruited at the time of beginning of the year. Yeah. This might be the year that if they don't under DeBoer. So it could be higher, but I'm just giving it a 7.
No, you're right. No, I didn't think about that. Like the future, what this year is going to do for him next year. I mean, I know that's the case pretty much for all, but I think it's more for him. I think it's a bigger deal having a good season this season for his recruiting next season, because everybody's going to be like, oh, he flopped. We knew it. Told you so. I knew that was going to happen. Called it. Going to be a lot of that going on if he does 8-4 or less. That 9 actually, playoff or bust, right?
I think, and we'll revisit this, but this is why I plucked this one out of the top 8. I think what gets scary to me, Fish, is you can say these things. I'll give you some scenarios. You can look at, I like that one, playoff or bust. I mean, if they can't solidify a quarterback that can sufficely get the ball to Ryan Williams, it's not only playoffs or bust, but you lose a lot of talent from a heavy junior senior team this year, and you're no longer recruiting based off of Nick Saban's good, great name, right? And then you start to go, well, what about the guys that are there who go, well, I didn't hit the portal because, I mean, does Ryan Williams go find his paycheck as junior? a junior, right? He's got one more year. And if he doesn't get the looks that he needs and Alabama's not successful,
Well, like I said, there's a whole nother transportal window.
right.
And this guy's about to go through spring camp with some new blood that he doesn't know if they can throw or not. Are they going to be to his liking? Because I think that matters.
Yeah.
I think I think
Interesting.
he needs a little input. I think because he's your
Yeah.
guy. He's going to
Yeah.
score your touchdowns. He's going to be your big play baller. He's gonna be the dude on the offense next year, no doubt. Because we don't know anyone else. I don't know anyone else in the receiving room off the top of my head.
So you're telling me he's like a LeBron James, he's the LeBron James
Maybe,
of Alabama.
maybe. I think I want him to stay, and I'll do whatever he needs. I mean, maybe not monetarily, but as far as giving him maybe a little input. I don't
You gotta
know
be
that.
you gotta be
Go ahead.
careful
I'm
though
sorry.
in sophomore years, man. Sophomore
Yeah,
seasons after breakout freshman seasons, like Ryan Williams, that this is the year where it's not a good year. There's so many factors in this Alabama thing, man. It's like it could be a whole show
we could
because
do a whole 90 on that. Yeah.
yeah, you got to look at Ryan Williams and go, if he's not successful, he's not going to go into his junior year. He needs to win. He needs to get the ball. He needs to have a quarterback that he's relying on to get him the ball. I mean, this is Ryan Williams is as a freshman, everybody looks at him and goes, when he becomes draft eligible, he was going to break a lot of Alabama records. He's going to do big things, all of the above. Well, guess what? Sophomore seasons are hard. You know why? Because if you don't have receivers around you and you don't have a quarterback that knows how to spread the ball around, you're going to get what? You're going to get a
All the
corner and you're
attention
going to get safety on top. You're going to get a safety over top of you every time.
every time.
So it starts making the sophomore campaign very hard and very mentally
Definitely,
tough for him. Look
definitely.
at. I mean, I'll leave it at this. Look at the Carson Beck sophomore campaign. It didn't go that
Lord,
well.
Lord,
Last question of the night
you
before
got
we
to tell
hop
me.
off on this 50th episode. Thank you for joining the 50th episode of the Dogs Down South podcast as well. If you're joining late and are just now checking in, this is the 50th episode. Man, where has 50 episodes gone? We're so grateful for all the followers, all the likes, all the thumbs up, smashing the thumbs up. Go follow us on YouTube. Trying to get that 1,000 mark, and then TikTok trying to get to 5,000 viewers as well. So thanks for the love, but we need more of it. So tell your friends, and let's try to get those numbers up so we can be even more effective of giving you great content every week. Hot question entering spring, Fish. I'll give you a multiple choice because we always, me and you. I remember us in high school, man. We love a multiple choice, right? Because we got a chance of getting it right, right? I never liked
25%.
yeah, man. You got a chance of getting it right, and you did the whole thing, man. Like, well, if it was C 3 times, it can't be C again, right? And then
No,
lo and
no.
behold, it could be.
Yep.
I flunked many a test like
Yeah.
that. hottest hottest question entering into spring. I'll give you the multiple choice. Offensive line, defensive line, or quarterback. What's your take?
Quarterback. Because
Why?
I'm nervous. I'm nervous about that. I still don't know a lot about Gunnar Stockton. I know he can run, and I know he can sling it, but I don't know if he can put a whole season together. He put a whole half together, against Texas, and God bless him. But we need him to do about 17 games like that.
Uh-huh.
Put
Uh-huh.
17 games together next year. Can he do it? Can Gunner do it? Is Puglisi gonna be the guy? You know.
Puglisi.
So that's my burning concern. I don't know what to expect, and it's hard being uneasy. We haven't been uneasy about a quarterback since Stetson's second year,
Right.
his first whole season as a starter. So
I I like the take. I like the take, but I'm gonna go back to your take, man. I'm gonna go back to your take from the beginning, which was a good take, man, really good take. And I didn't think about this on breakout players. I think the biggest talk and the thing that has to garner the most what's the word I want to use for it? The most push is the offensive line. It
Hmm.
has to move forward because it will get the running game has to move forward.
Yeah.
The offensive line is going to be the most important thing I'm looking at. Do we have a lot to replace on the D line? Absolutely, we do. I have more trust in Trey Scott right now, though, than I have in Stacy Searles. I just do.
Hmm. Yeah.
Quarterback play. Guess what, man? If Gunner or Puglisi only have 2 seconds, I mean, we've all seen that Patty Mahomes, we gave him 2 seconds and he couldn't do a thing.
Yep.
So my thing is, if you don't get the hot topic is the O line, I gotta see us run the ball in G Day. I gotta see these running backs going crazy. I gotta see the offensive line owning the game. And if I see that, this podcast takes a tilt and we start talking more about now. Now it's endless. It's
Yeah.
endless of what we can do this year at Georgia. Would you agree?
Oh yeah. I agree.
But I like the
I mean,
quarterback take.
yeah. But
I like
I
the quarterback.
mean, we need it's offensive because we're Georgia fans, die hard. You know, the past 10, 15 years, our defense, well, especially since Kirby started, we haven't really had to worry about defense. The
Yeah.
defense is going to be the defense. Whether we lose 7, 8 people to the NFL or 2 or 3 people to the NFL in a draft, or a transfer portal now, well, who knows, whatever. But the defense is going to be good because we invest in the defense. Like Kirby invests in it, and
Yeah.
as far as recruiting and stuff like that goes, that's his baby. That's his brand of football. That's his style. That was Saban's, and we know, the rest is history. You
Yeah.
know, and I didn't want to name drop Saban like that, but it's true, and
You
and I'm
gotta give
glad.
yeah. Gotta
I'm
give
glad
due.
we got Kirby. Got to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
But
I, I
the
think you gotta
offense has to improve.
I think you're giving him his due, man. I mean, I think if we want to name drop, like right now, Kirby Smart is the most looked up to coach in the country. He will have that defense right. The
Hmm.
thing he doesn't have his thumb on a little bit, it's a little bit different that he has to rely on a lot. He has to rely on that offensive staff. So we retain Bobo. Bobo has to be the executive of that offense. He's got to get these guys together and go from the top of the offensive staff down. We have to get these things right. We have to look at making sure that we are fundamentally sound with our assignments. First off and foremost, we have to know what we are doing. The second thing is we have to be physicality has to become another second nature tool of Georgia's offensive lines, physicality. And the
Hmm.
third thing, in my opinion, is we give if we give people time to throw the ball, it doesn't matter if Puglisi's back there or Stetson Bennett. We've seen in the past it doesn't really matter as long as we have a leader at that position who has a good enough arm and a good enough know-how. He already has the talent because he's playing at Georgia. It's going to be fine,
Yep.
So I got to see a lot coming out of that line. But hey, man, this 50th episode has been really good. We're going to hit the other top 8 maybe next week or a couple weeks from now when we go on live again. But Fish, final thoughts for tonight?
Oh man, I was after my few weeks off. It was good to be back talking
Yeah,
football. Love it, love it, love it.
yeah,
Can't believe it's been 50 episodes. That's unreal. It
it's
doesn't seem
crazy,
like
man.
it's been that long. It's just like another day. Now
It's
it's just
crazy.
something we do. So, but
It's crazy, man. Over
yeah,
a thousand, over 1,000 listens on Apple Podcasts. So appreciate that as well. I don't know when you're listening or things of that nature. This is good that we have that outlet to be able to catch it later. So thanks for all the support.
yes, sir.
Can't wait for spring. We need stuff to talk about. We'll continue venturing into the SEC, finish out those top 8 teams,
Yeah.
and then we're going to look at our next big topic to join the show in on will be why does this year look eerily similar to the first year that Stetson Bennett was taking over the offense? There's a lot of similarities. We'll talk about it.
Quarterback uncertainty.
Yeah,
Sorry.
quarterback uncertainty. We had a lot of uncertainty as a whole, and then we
Yeah.
started seeing some certainty. And we're going to side by side those years. I've been working on this episode for a couple of weeks now, just to look at the similarities. It'll be crazy to see the similarities, and dog fans, you won't want to miss it, because every time I would do another piece of that puzzle, it would give me hope and going, hey, it's all about the process. It's how we recruit, how we develop. It really is next man up. But a lot of us have the woes and the blues because we're like, well, we really don't know who's going to be in that spot. I'm telling you, we do a great job of recruiting. We do a great job of developing. It's not who, it's how good are they going to be in that position is what I'm worried about. So, and I think there's gonna be good things. So, Fish, always a pleasure, man. Looking forward to the next episode we get together. But for tonight and tonight's episode, thanks for joining the 50th episode of the Dogs Down South podcast. Once again, make sure you go like and follow. Tell your friends.
Tell your friends.
All right. Tell your friends. And as always, have a great week and go Dogs.
Go Dogs.